Hello and welcome to Make It Count, Census 2010. I'm your host, Mitch Fox. On today's program, we hope to answer some of the questions you may be having about the 2010 census. We're also going to talk about how the census will help create jobs, assist social service agencies, support local businesses, and Clark County classrooms. And joining me throughout the program is David Byerman, Chief Government Liaison for Nevada for the U.S. Census Bureau. In this segment, we're also joined by Las Vegas City Councilman Stavros Anthony and Lance Rake of the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. And we also like to hear your questions and concerns. We have a phone line for you. That number to call is 737-7500, or you can email your questions in at census2010@vegaspbs.org. Questions will also be taken on Facebook at facebook.com/Nevada Census 2010 and on Twitter at twitter.com/NV Census. So much social networking going on. We've got to make sure we get all that information out.
That's right.
David, let's just start with you. This is a massive effort. People would like to know at what stage is the process right now. What can they expect from the Census Bureau in our community?
Sure. Well, most people throughout the Las Vegas Valley have already received the first census questionnaire in the mail last week. Many of them have already mailed it in, and we appreciate that. The reason that we're doing this in this way is because we want to communicate just how important the census is. It really boils down to three things, Mitch: power, jobs, and money. Power in Carson City with the state legislature being redistricted. Power in Washington, D.C. Because we are one of the very few states that has a new congressional seat that we may gain as a result of this process, and a 6th electoral vote to boot. Jobs, we're going to be hiring about 5,000 people, and we'll be talking about that later today. We do have a census jobs hotline we'd like to get out there in case people at home would like to learn more about the census. That hotline is 866-861-2010. But more than anything, it really boils down to a question of money. We did some work about a year and a half ago, found that for every man, woman, and child that we miss here in Nevada, we stand to lose $917 per person per year. And keep in mind, we only do this process once every 10 years, meaning if we miss one family of 4 here in Nevada, we're going to lose $36,000 over 10 years in federal funding.
Well, and we'll go over that and perhaps what has happened in prior censuses and what we've lost out in the year 2000, also 1990. I thought that was interesting information, actually. So let's go right to our package. Nevada unemployment remains at 13%, but the Nevada Census Bureau is seeking to hire more than 5,000 employees. Veronica Ogletree is a single mother who is one of the Valley's unemployed, but the U.S. Census Bureau has got her working again.
It's a story that has become all too familiar for many Nevada families. A mother working hard to provide for her family suddenly finds herself among the ranks of the unemployed.
I was in sales, so we had to take a pay cut because we were hourly and commission, and eventually, my sales quota just wasn't where it should have been, so they had to lay me off.
Nevada's unemployment rate ranks among the highest in the nation. As Nevada families summon the strength and determination to survive the economic recession, the 2010 census offers what many are searching for: jobs and opportunity.
Something different other than what I had been doing, for sure. 6 days after I had been laid off, I was testing for the Census Bureau.
The Census Bureau expects to hire more than 5,000 Nevadans to work on the 2010 census. Nevadans who are hired to work on the 2010 census can expect paid training, flexible work schedules, and respectable weekly wages. Music to the ears of many Nevada families searching for employment opportunities.
The hourly rate was conducive to what I had previously been making at the other job, so that made it more enticing, I think.
The majority of Nevadans hired by the Census Bureau will work as neighborhood canvassers. Census canvassers are critically important to getting a complete census count of all Nevadans because they are responsible for visiting households that have not returned their census forms through the mail. This process is called non-response follow-up and will take place from May to July of this year. Since the 2010 census is a highly confidential process, census canvassers must undergo a rigorous training process, pass an FBI background check, and take an official oath to protect census information for the rest of their lives. But for census workers like Veronica, her role as a canvasser is viewed not only as a job that helps provide for her family during difficult economic times, it's seen as a civic duty, one whereby neighbors count neighbors and Nevadans stand up for Nevada. For every one Nevadan that Veronica gets counted during her census canvassing efforts, our state will gain $10,000 in federal resources over the course of the next decade. Resources our communities need and that will help improve quality of life for all Nevada families.
And making sure that everybody's counted, because those funds are needed for our city, for our state.
Lons, I'd like to start with you with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. Why did you see a need to get involved in this effort?
Well, frankly, one of the concerns that we have is that some communities are historically underrepresented, and some of those are historically urban communities of color and economically disenfranchised communities. But one of the main reasons I think that's very, very important right now is that we're inching towards 14% unemployment down here in Clark County, in Las Vegas, in the urban area. And when you look at those unemployment numbers, one of the things that people really need is some sort of bridge employment. And this census opportunity is just absolutely perfect for so many folks. It can be older folks, it can be younger folks, it can be folks who are temporarily unemployed, but this bridge can last from a couple of weeks to months. And it's a good wage, it's a good hourly wage, and it's also, frankly, I think, very good experience on the resume and in terms of your experience when you go to a potential future job. So I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of people in this community. Gets you out in the sunshine, and frankly, I think it's really important for our community all the way around.
You're networked with a number of organizations and groups in this community. How are you getting the word out with those organizations? One
of the ways is to work with them directly and to do, informational sort of sessions with them and just say, hey, this is really important right now. We had the opportunity to do that with some of our labor unions, our friends of the culinary, and other particular groups, and the response has been absolutely very, very positive.
Mr. Anthony, I'd like to turn to you now, and there's some concern when people come knocking on your door and they identify themselves as a census worker. What do you look for? How do you verify the fact that they are really working for the Census Bureau?
Right. That's something we need to be concerned about. And as you know, Mitch, I was with the Las Vegas Police Department for 29 years, and my last 2 years as a captain, I was in charge of the Financial Crimes Bureau. So I've seen all the scams and fraud and forgery, and anytime you have a significant event like this, you're going to have people out there that may be scamming. So the first thing is, if you fill out the form and you mail it in, there's a very small chance that you're going to be contacted by somebody at your residence. But there is a possibility that may happen. So if somebody comes to your house, do your due diligence. Check their U.S. Census ID. If you want, check another form of ID to make sure you know exactly who you're talking to. Be careful about the questions that they ask. If they ask you your Social Security number for financial documents, things like that, absolutely don't give those away. It's strictly Census Bureau questions that they should be asking you. If they say, can I come into your house and ask you these questions, absolutely do not do that, because there's a potential for a criminal to use this type of activity to commit a home invasion. So just do your due diligence. If somebody comes there and they look like a Census Bureau employee, stay outside, answer the questions, but just be very careful when somebody comes to your home for something like this.
You have a number of seniors in your particular area that you represent. Right. What is your word to them?
Well, a big part of my ward is Sun City, Summerlin, and for these kind of scams, it's always, these criminals know they target senior citizens because they're more trustworthy. They just like to talk to folks. So to them, be very, very careful. And if the hair rises up on the back of your neck, just go back in the house, call the Census Bureau, let them know somebody came out here. They'll let you know if this was a legitimate person or not. And always, if you think there's some criminal activity going on, contact the police department. So the Census Bureau does need at times to contact you at your house. Just do your due diligence again to make sure this is the right person out there.
And Mitch, we actually have a couple of photos we can put up on screen that show the actual bag and the actual badge, what that will look like. We are very concerned as well from the Census Bureau's perspective. You know, we want to make sure that this is a process that is trusted in the community. So we're going to work very diligently over the next month to make sure that we educate the public exactly how to tell a legitimate census taker from an illegitimate one.
And what about background checks? Do your workers actually undergo some sort of checks?
Every single one of them do. In fact, because we handle confidential information and we keep every piece of information that we collect confidential for 72 years, we will only hire people who are, vetted, and we will conduct a fingerprint background check through the FBI with every single person. All 4,800 people that will be hired here in Nevada will be checked.
You know, one of the things that, Lance, you're involved in is a political influence and political clout, and sometimes people forget that census data determines the strength of your congressional delegation in terms of the numbers.
Well, it sure does, and frankly, one of the things we'd love to see is that the numbers are reflected in a way that gives us an extra congressional representative in D.C. That's more power for Nevada, but it actually affects districting at every level. So that means on your local, on the town or county level, all the way up to the federal level. And that's exciting because that means that your participation in the census actually has a real impact in the way that policies are decided for the city, for the county, and in Carson City, and obviously if we get another representative in D.C. as well.
Well, people forget that representative in D.C. could make up a larger portion of the Electoral College influence and maybe play more of a role in presidential contests as well.
That's right. And if you look at the way that some of the policies have developed and the voice that Nevada has had in national politics, the fact that our growing population has led to greater Electoral College representation has played a part in that. So, it really does make a difference. Not to mention the fact that David mentioned earlier, and that is it's almost $10,000 per person over a period of 10 years.
Yeah, Mr. Anthony, closing words. What do you want to tell your constituents in terms of getting involved in this census?
It's easy. You get the form in the mail, you fill it out. I filled mine out. It took me 5 minutes. I mailed it, and you're done. You're basically done. And if somebody does come to your door to ask you a few more questions, do your due diligence to make sure that they're an employee, and if they are, answer the questions. If they're not, go back in the house and contact the Census Bureau.
Again, to repeat, look for the ID. It is confidential. They've all been background checked.
72 years, that is a long time for your information to be protected, not only from other respondents, but from any government agency. So if you're concerned about this being used by ICE, by immigration, by Homeland Security, your information is protected.
Okay. For the past year, more and more people have been turning to social service agencies just to get by in these tough economic times. Unfortunately, incidences of domestic violence sometimes increase during economic downturns. Safe House is just one of the many local nonprofit organizations which are impacted by the census.
Nevada's 2010 Census campaign brings Nevadans together from all walks of life. The census in Nevada is about growth, about change, and about updating our perspective on what it truly means to be a Nevadan. But more than anything, the census in Nevada is about families. This is a story about one Nevada family and how the 2010 census will have a profound impact on their quality of life. This family's journey is one of transition from uncertainty, violence, and fear to self-sufficiency, independence, and hope. The journey began at a place called Safe House.
Safe House is a domestic violence agency. We have a 54-bed shelter for women and children. In our shelter, we have counseling, we offer skill building. We also offer support. The average victim goes back to their abuser 7 times. We're someone in the community that cares, that always has our door open, and we make sure that they know that they have a safe place to go to, as well as the tools to get back on their feet, to start a new life, or to get away from the life that they don't want anymore.
2010 census data will act as an underlying support system of community data that nonprofits and community-based organizations need in order to get grant funding from government agencies and private foundations. These funds go directly to programs and services that help our most vulnerable families meet basic subsistence needs, a growing segment of our population. Such was the case for one Nevada family that arrived at Safe House with nowhere else to turn.
It all started, with a marriage. She now is in her 30s, mid-30s, and she's decided that she can no longer take the abuse. She has 3 children, so she decided she needed to leave. Well, she's been a housewife for 10 years, limited job skills. She's been isolated from her family. He moved her here. She knows nobody, doesn't really have any friends. So she's afraid that people won't believe her. She's embarrassed, ashamed. So she first called Safe House, and we were completely full because unfortunately we only have a 54-bed shelter. We don't have full resources yet. There's another domestic violence agency in the neighborhood, and they were full as well. So at first she had to go into a homeless shelter.
A complete count of all Southern Nevada residents during the 2010 census will ensure we receive our fair share of what amounts to millions of dollars in funding for local programs like community development block grants, emergency shelter grants for displaced families, food banks for the hungry, and homeless prevention and rapid rehousing services. All programs that are funded based on formulas that include census data and that directly help Southern Nevada families.
Unfortunately, she did not have her own car, and she didn't have any funds in her name. The husband was in charge of all of the finances. When she got here into Safe House, we offered her other bus passes. We give them a monthly pass so that they can go to, the trainings that they need to go to, the court appearances that they need to go to. So she ended up coming finally into Safe House. We got her a bed for her and her 3 children, and we started giving her skill building classes. It took a while. It wasn't an overnight trip. It took a couple years. And she was self-sufficient at this point. And that's what we try to do with these families. We serve as that, intermediate area where they can get that help that they really need. Get into a safe place so that they don't have any other distractions. They're not worried about what violence is gonna come. They're not worried about where their next meal is gonna come from, or clothing, or what school their kids are gonna go to. We help them with that. So many different types of people come into our shelter because it doesn't just happen to one ethnicity, one culture group, one socioeconomic group. It can happen to anybody.
For every Nevadan not counted during the 2010 census, our community will lose approximately $9,000 over the next decade. This could mean that millions of dollars intended to support programs and services like those that help this family survive would be lost.
The more money that we can get back into Nevada, the easier it's going to be for nonprofits to help the members of the community who really need it.
The 2010 census will help families just like the one you heard about today. Over the next 10 years, countless families will fall directly into our community's safety net and embark on a struggle for survival. Make it count today for generations of tomorrow. 10 questions, 10 minutes, 10 families. Nevada's Census 2010 campaign will benefit all of us in different ways. Seldom does such a brief and easy process bring such profound benefits for a community. For more information or to join the campaign, visit the website on your screen.
I'd like to welcome to this segment, which will focus on nonprofits and social service agencies, Henderson City Councilwoman Deborah March. Jody Tyson is the Research and Policy Manager with 3 Square, and Samantha Willey, who you just saw in the tape package. Samantha is Director of Education at Safe House. Samantha, let me start with you. How did your organization get involved, and why did you see a need?
Well, we have the hard-to-count population in our shelter, and we think it's very important because of the resources we use in the community, because we can't do everything by ourselves. Resource collaboration is very important, and the funds that are allocated through the census help with the emergency shelter that we have. It helps with job training. It helps with transportation, as well as food vouchers, everything that this woman needed to leave her domestic violence situation and become a self-sufficient, woman to take care of her children. And we have more than, 54 people in our shelter. We have transitional clients. And we know that with the census, their confidentiality is going to be kept, but they're going to be counted, and that money is going to come back into our community and help not just our organization, but organizations that we rely on to help our clients.
A lot of people wonder about the homeless population, and there's this notion about service-based enumeration where you really count these homeless shelters and so forth. Explain that.
Well, what we did is, because we have our confidentiality location, and because we don't have the typical clients that have their homes, and even our transitional clients are living in different apartment complexes, and we have our 54-bed shelter. But this service-based enumeration allows us to have someone come in and count, the homeless shelter, the tent cities, stuff like that. And it happens, until March 31st. We've already had people come into our shelter and count all of our clients so that they will be counted in this coming census. And
this is actually an ongoing operation that will culminate next week when we will do a homeless census actually out on the streets, not at service-based locations, but actually on the streets for people who are not receiving services. The Census Bureau does a lot of advance work to make sure that we have a good idea of where the homeless encampments are, where there are concentrations of homeless people, and how best to work through the community to get the best possible count. I know last year the Clark County Social Services did their own homeless census, and we shadowed them. We learned a tremendous amount last spring that we've really been able to put to use this spring to get the best possible count for the community.
Jody, I'd like to ask you about 3 Square and again why you found this is so important to get involved in this. Explain it from the perspective of grants. People sometimes forget that the grant application process and the grant qualification process is so dependent on accurate census data.
Absolutely. When we apply for grants, either federal grants or state grants, we're able to identify not only how many people are in our 4-county geographic service area, but also we are able to look at where the population density is so that we can identify very accurately where our needs and neighborhoods are based on how many partner agencies are in that existing area, how many people are living in that area, so that we know where in the community our greatest needs are around population, and then we can apply for programs that are very targeted with a specific amount of money to direct need to a certain area of the community.
Councilwoman March, I'd like to ask you about the impact in Henderson, and obviously we're talking about community development block grants, senior centers, and Head Start. So there's a huge impact in your particular area.
Yes, with the economic changes that are occurring in our communities, these resources through CDBG and other federal dollars that come through and pass through to our community make a real difference. They impact the lives of our residents, and we see more and more a need for services, and we're able to respond because we have these federal pass-through dollars. We're paying taxes, and we should get those dollars back into our community, and through CDBG and through the pass-through, we're able to reach out and provide services through the nonprofits that serve our community.
This is still a high growth area, even though the growth has not been as robust lately.
Yes.
So when you tell your constituents, how do you explain the census to them?
Well, we tell them, that there's 10 questions that you need to complete, and it only takes 10 minutes. That means $10,000 that come back to the community over a 10-year period. And we're paying these taxes, and these monies should come back to our community, and through their participation, that those dollars will come back to our community. So we share that with them. And it also means reapportionment. It means a representation in Washington and able to get more resources back to our community because we're represented.
We talked about the amount of money at stake in this process a few minutes ago, $917 per person per year. We actually have a graphic we can put up that shows the percentage for all these different categories. And if you look at that graphic, nearly half of the $917 is social service funding. So that directly impacts on the ability for Jody and Samantha and so many nonprofit leaders across the Las Vegas Valley to be able to provide resources to the community. And ironically, Mitch, the people who are most likely to benefit from the census tend to be the hardest to convince to fill out the form and send it back in. So we have worked diligently, working through our community partnership team in the African American community, in the Latino community, in the Asian community, to make sure that we get trusted voices who are going to be able to share the importance of the census in a way that is culturally sensitive and persuasive in those communities as well.
Okay. Well, during the winter, Nevada attracts seasonal residents from all over the country, and it's important that they be counted as part of the Nevada census. We are now going to look at an out-of-state couple who claims Mesquite as their primary residence.
This family story is shared through a visit to Mesquite, a southern Nevada community where the accommodating weather, natural landscapes, and leisure opportunities attract many seasonal residents, often referred to as snowbirds.
I think that's the classic snowbird where people come just for a winter season. We don't really do that. We're down here like every single month, and we try to be here anywhere from a week to 2 weeks a month.
I think for most folks, they come down for the entire winter season and stay here. We try to get here as much as we can throughout the year.
The 2010 census is about neighbors counting neighbors in order to achieve a complete and accurate count of all residents. For communities like Mesquite, this process includes counting snowbirds. But in order to make this possible, snowbirds will need to identify Mesquite as their primary residence on their census form.
We've declared it as our primary residence because this is where we'd rather be. I love the sunshine and the very clear air and the beautiful vistas and the community.
When we retire, we're going to stay down here where it's nice and warm and be in the sunshine.
The 2010 census is a completely confidential process that is safe and easy. For seasonal residents, identifying their primary place of residence on their census form is a private household decision. However, the ability to count snowbirds during the 2010 census will largely depend on whether living on April 1st, National Census Day. This is why it's so important that snowbirds in all Nevada communities fill out their census form as soon as it arrives at their place of residence in March.
Well, before census was even a question, we decided that this would be our primary residence because this is, I guess it's corny to say, where our heart is, you know, where it's fun.
Including snowbirds like this family in the 2010 census will impact not just Mesquite, but many other southern Nevada communities that welcome seasonal residents every year, such as Laughlin and Boulder City. Achieving a complete and accurate census count is critically important for our rural and outlying areas. Census data will help these communities receive their fair share of federal funding to support local programs and services like building and maintaining streets and highways, healthcare centers, parks and recreation facilities, and transit programs and community centers that help our senior citizens, all aspects that define the character of a community and create the vibrant quality of life that drew this family to Mesquite.
Active adult is what they call it, and the idea being you're getting older, but the kids are raised, and you want to take time to live your life to the maximum, and that includes a lot of physical activities. That's exactly what these communities are all about.
For every Nevadan not counted during the 2010 census, our state will lose $10,000 over the course of the next 10 years. These are dollars that should rightfully flow back to our state from federal agencies to support a better and brighter future for all Nevada families. Please remember to fill out your census form.
Especially if money's being divvied up.
Yeah.
I certainly want more money for Nevada because I'm here to enjoy it.
For this segment, I'd like to welcome the mayor of Mesquite, Susan Holchak, and also Jill Lagan, who is Chief Executive Officer of the Boulder City Chamber of Commerce. Let's talk about this whole notion of snowbirds and seasonal residents. People sometimes don't understand exactly who is counted, and that's very, very important for a community like Mesquite.
Mesquite has always boasted and enjoyed a very large seasonal component. It's been felt that beginning in April and throughout the month of May, we sometimes can lose as many as 5,000 people. That's probably because we have such mild winters, but yet such hot summers. So we wanted to engage in a public outreach program that would really resonate with our residents. So our theme for this census was Call Mesquite Home. And it was really meant to give that comfort level to those people who perhaps are only in Mesquite 6 months, that it is okay, and in fact we encourage them to fill out that form before they do leave and really make Nevada count.
How do you deal with that dual residence kind of thing? When people ask you that question, what do you say?
And it's not an uncommon question across the state of Nevada. We've got many communities, both in northern Nevada and southern Nevada, that have a large number of seasonal residents. The rules the Census Bureau has set up for this occasion is wherever you live the majority of the year is where you're supposed to be counted. However, many people who travel to different places don't live anywhere a majority of the year, and in that case, you are counted where you are on April 1st. Now, for Mayor Holchak, you know, that is an important distinction because she can convince people, stick around for an extra couple of weeks, be here next week on April 1st, and you're counted as a Nevadan, you're counted as a resident of Mesquite, and Mesquite gets the federal resources that brings with it. But the other part of the equation is we have a real concern about Mesquite and communities like it because when we get into May and into June, and we're sending out census takers to go out there knocking on doors, we may miss people in that stage of the process. So it is incredibly important especially for communities like Mesquite, that we get them to fill out that questionnaire and send it in now, because we may well not be able to contact the people who don't do so later in the process.
How do you catch them before they pack their bags and go to wherever it's cooler in the summer?
Well, when I talked about that public outreach, what we've tried to do is to really have workshops where we're not only talking to residences, we're talking to businesses, we're talking to community groups. And actually, one of the fun things we did this year was to actually get our young people, our youth, working for us and get them to work on their parents, filling out the form, those that are there. And we actually had a contest this year, and there was a cash prize. They made a poster, and those posters now are in various businesses encouraging people to fill out that form. We had a young man, Logan, who won first, and then two young ladies, Amanda and Chloe. So we're very proud of them. But again, those posters are in businesses, and just keeping people mindful of getting the form filled out.
Jill, there was a quick photo of a healthcare facility in Boulder City in that video, and I guess this whole area of the rural health grants, that's so vitally important. Explain its impact on the Boulder City area.
I don't think people really realize, but a lot of our smaller community programs, senior centers, hospitals, the rec departments, things like that, are funded by rural health grants or other rural grants that are based on some of the demographics and population counts that are given by the census. And so if that information is not given correctly on April 1st, we stand to lose throughout the remainder of that year. In the 1990 census, we were the 5th worst. The state of Nevada was the 5th worst. That's a horrible statistic. We definitely don't want to lose $60 million over that each year over that 10 years. So we want to make sure we don't leave any money on the table. We want to grab every dollar that we can, make sure it goes into our public health facilities, our hospitals, our senior centers, our rec departments, and facilities that a lot of these snowbirds are using. We're grateful that they come in and bring economic stimulus to our businesses and to our community, but if they want to be able to drive out on a road that's not bumpy, they're going to definitely want to be counted so that they can help make sure that we see those funds.
Do you have the seasonal resident issue like Mesquite does as much in Boulder?
Not as much. However, we do have several parks and communities, and we wanted to make sure that they also were very familiar with the process and wanted to be able to make sure we can answer those questions. And I've been grateful to be part of the Complete Count Committee so that we could get that message out through the City Council meeting and also through several other workshops that we had. And again, our businesses are being notified. We were able to take advantage of the big welcome corner board, a big huge LED screen that we put out there, make sure you're counted. And we've had a lot of questions. A lot of people have called in, and we've been able to give a lot of great answers so that people understand the importance of this census.
I think some people don't realize that students in dorms, prison inmates, of course we talked about seasonal residents, immigrants, people sometimes that are termed even illegal immigrants, they're all counted.
Everybody counts in the census. If you are here in Nevada, it doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not. If you're living here, we want to make sure that we get an accurate count. Now, we do separate processes for conducting the counts in those other scenarios. If we're on a military base, the base commander is going to know who's supposed to be there. If we are in a jail or prison, that's about the easiest population to count because the warden has a pretty accurate count at all times.
Hopefully.
As to exactly who's there. I hope so. But it's amazing when you start to think about how complex this process is. It's not just counting people in a typical home, in a typical residence. We have to anticipate a wide variety of different living arrangements, and I think we've done our homework. We've learned a lot of lessons, and we've actually got a pretty good plan of attack on how we're going to get an accurate count of every person in Nevada, no matter what their living situation at home.
All right. In order for small businesses to market themselves effectively, they need to be informed about their community. Aloha Kitchen is just one of many small businesses that rely on census data to help generate income.
Nevada's 2010 Census campaign brings Nevadans together from all walks of life. The census in Nevada is about growth, about change, and about updating our perspective on what it truly means to be a Nevadan. But more than anything, the census in Nevada is about families. This is a story about one Nevada family and how the 2010 census will have a profound impact on their quality of life. This story is an example of the often understated impact that 2010 census participation will have on our local small business community over the course of the next 10 years. A story that unfolded during a trip to Aloha Kitchen.
I've been in business for 12 years. The first location we have is the one at UNLV, and this is our second location. It's been here 9 years. Well, we're a Japanese Hawaiian restaurant. Our main items are teriyaki bowls. We cater to a lot of the students. It's reasonable.
Aloha Kitchen is a uniquely Las Vegas example of adapting the entrepreneurial goals of a small business to an ever-changing and diverse population.
60% of our customers are Asians, Pacific Islanders, 18 to 35 years old, maybe even younger. But we get all kinds, and we're very grateful for everybody's business.
But like many local small businesses, Aloha Kitchen has been hit especially hard by the economic recession. And although it's managed to survive through the toughest of times, the journey hasn't been easy.
A couple of our locations, like the UNLV location, it's seasonal. So when the students are out, our sales drop. And more so nowadays because of the recession. In the past, it would drop like 10-15% during the summer. It's dropped about 35 to 40% in the summer the last 2 years because of the recession.
The 2010 census is critically important to local small businesses like Aloha Kitchen. In order to evaluate their business model and make informed decisions, small businesses rely on accurate data that describes their local communities. The 2010 census will provide the type of population data that helps small businesses effectively target customers through marketing and other business development activities.
It's important for future planning. I want to grow as a business. We have 4 locations. I want to grow more. In order to make proper decisions, you have to have accurate data. You want to know where your customers are, who your target markets in the beginning. And you just don't set up shop anywhere. You look for those people, and hopefully you'll find the right location for that.
The 2010 census gives all Nevadans an opportunity to stand shoulder to shoulder with our small business community. A complete and accurate census count will help small businesses feel confident they are making sound business decisions. Decisions that will help our local small businesses not only survive the recession, but that will help them and all of us embark on a new era of growth and economic development. 10 questions, 10 minutes, 10 families. Nevada's Census 2010 campaign will benefit all of us in different ways. Seldom does such a brief and easy process bring such profound benefits for our community. For more information or to join the campaign, visit the website on your screen.
Joining me during this segment is Henderson City Councilwoman Jerry Schroeder. Veronica Meter is Vice President of Government Affairs for the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce. And Caroline Sioka is Director of Community Relations at Cash America. Councilwoman, let me start with you. Sometimes people don't know the impact on business, on small business, that the census process has. Explain it from your perspective on the Henderson City Council.
Well, as a municipality, our revenue is based on what comes in through the business community. When the business community is able to, in particular small businesses, they cannot improve upon workers or hiring workers. See, and I'm trying to think of what is it that I want to say exactly. In order for the business community to improve on hiring workers and their businesses, the census is very important for them to understand what the demographics are. We get our revenue based on what the business community does. When the business community is more comfortable with spending money to grow their own businesses, then that helps keep the community more confident with spending money, and eventually it comes back around to the city So that way we can improve upon our services for what the community expects us to have.
And you have a number of small businesses really cropping up all over that particular area.
We do, yeah. There are a lot of small businesses, and it's something that I'm very involved with, serving on the Henderson Development Association and working with the Henderson Chamber of Commerce. This is something that's very important to us, and again, as the business community evolves, then the revenue comes in, and especially with the census, it kind of all falls downstream. You get federal government dollars from the federal agencies, comes over to the state then allocates that over to the municipalities, and then we can therefore funnel that over down to our services. But it all starts off with businesses. The businesses need to be able to grow in order to hire people. The more people you hire, the better the businesses there are because people spend more. You know, it's a trickle down kind of an effect, but then also trickle up effect too.
You know, actually there are some businesses that will only cite their locations based on census data when a population crosses over a certain threshold. So I'll say to everybody right home, if you want to see an IKEA, come to Las Vegas. You know, filling out that census form may be part of that answer too, because you know, there are definitely some decisions made based on what census tracts are growing, based on what communities are growing, and exactly what the extent of that growth is.
Veronica, what is the message to your members? What are you telling them about the importance of this particular census?
Mitch, there's been a lot of talk lately about economic recovery, economic development, diversification of our economy. The key to that, to the long term, not just the short term, to recovering from this economic downturn will be job creation, private sector jobs. Not only embracing and nurturing our current businesses so that they can hire more Nevadans, retain Nevadans, but also hire future people to work on their businesses, small businesses. Most of our membership is small businesses, about 85% of them are 25 employees and under. So it is really important to make sure that we're giving the business the tools to stay here and also come here, move here, relocate to Nevada to create more jobs for Nevadans. And that's really key because quality of life is not just for the employers, it's for the employees and it's for the families. We're all enjoying that. We're all part of the same community. So our messaging to our members is speak with your employees, have these employees speak with their families. It is so important because we're all part of Southern Nevada and we all live here. And more representation in Washington, D.C., a much greater voice when it comes to the top issues that impact our area, not only in D.C., but also statewide and in local government, as we just mentioned earlier. I think it's very important to all businesses and all members of our community.
Even in terms of marketing, it's so much easier if you have accurate data to go ahead and target those individuals, segments of our society, demographically and whatever, if you've got that accurate data.
Absolutely. And also, Mitch, if someone's thinking about investing in Nevada, in our area, someone's thinking about making the move here, it is so important that we have accurate information to make sure that they're making the informed decisions prior to moving here.
Caroline, how did Cash America get involved?
Well, we decided that as a business in the community, we had a responsibility to educate our employees and our customers about the census and why it's so important for us to get our fair share. And we have a strong distribution channel of 21 locations throughout the valley, and we thought it would be fun and creative to create a marketing program that would raise awareness about the census and to educate people about the census and why it's so important. So we developed a marketing initiative to do that, and we did some fun things with
Super Census Saturday.
Super Census Saturday, and we allocated one day to really talk about it and have people come on down to one of our locations, simply pledge to fill out your census, and they would enter into a drawing, and they could win anything from diamond earrings to an Xbox to a television, whatever item that store selected. And it was just, you know, a little extra motivation, a little incentive to get people thinking about the census. We are a society that's inundated with marketing messages. So the census needs as much help as they can to rise above all the other marketing messages. So why not have a business co-brand their marketing message with the census, and we wanted to make it easy enough so that other businesses could follow the same program, and it could just be turnkey, inexpensive. We have a lot of small businesses that may not have the funds to allocate towards raising awareness, so we wanted to make sure it was easy and inexpensive.
And you know, to their great credit, Caroline is underselling the role that Superpon has played here. They have created a network, a process by which we can engage other businesses, to engage their customers and their employees. We've worked with so many employers throughout the valley. You know, MGM Mirage has developed these amazing audio visuals which are playing right now back of house at 12 different casino properties here in Las Vegas. There are so many examples of different businesses that have really gotten behind this and educated their own employees, and it's just yet another way for us to reach the public.
All right, the Nevada Census will play an important role in the quality of education our children receive. We'll now take a look at a mother who has children in the Clark County School District.
It's a common story shared by many Nevada families. The constant push to improve one's life through hard work, sacrifices made in order to provide for those who depend on us, and ever-present hope that all the effort will culminate in a better and brighter Nevada for future generations.
I work for a laundry company. I have been with them for 11 years. We pick up soiled uniforms, towels, and linens from local hotels to launder and return.
Like all parents, Vicenta's core motivation is to ensure her children have a solid foundation upon which to strive for excellence and achievement.
My 17-year-old who will be finishing high school, Emmanuel, who has 3 years left to finish high school, and Jacqueline, who will enter the first grade. I encourage them by demanding they get to bed early in order to get ready for school each morning. I have to admit, they are diligent in that regard. My hopes for my children once they graduate from high school are that they continue their education through to college and grow as individuals and professionals.
These hopes and dreams are paved by a path of determination and education. The 2010 census will play a large role in helping to ensure Nevada school children receive a quality education. Census data are used when establishing formulas for allocating federal funds for various state K-12 education programs. Put simply, blank and unreturned census forms equate to less money for our state's school children.
When I receive my census form in the mail, I plan to fill it out and return it right away. I share these same thoughts with family, friends, and coworkers because the education for our children stands to be directly affected. It is very important to me that my children receive a good education because their future careers depend on it.
Welcome back. Join me for the education segment of our program is Clark County School District Board of Trustees President Terry Janison and Aldo Aguirre from the Mexican-American Legal Defense and Education Fund. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
You know, education, as I was poring over this research, wow, so much is dependent on the census in terms of funding. And well, let's talk a little bit about the programs in the school district that are really almost exclusively dependent on accurate census figures in terms of the federal government.
Well, you know, the two areas that are most affected, unfortunately, are the children who live in poverty, and then also children who speak a different language than English as their first language. We currently have over 150 languages spoken in the Clark County School District. So it's very important, because there's no state funding that is earmarked specifically for either one of those items, and so those federal funds are critical to us, and so it's just imperative that we have accurate numbers from the census to ensure that our children who live in poverty and children who have English as a second language are taken care of.
More specifically, the free and reduced lunch program, I understand that because of what prior census figures, you're not going to get the money or the funds that you need next year, so it's really almost so important, so incumbent now to make sure we make up for that lost revenue.
You know, and there's two angles to that specifically, because we're currently funded 10,000 children under what is accurate for those children with free and reduced lunch. So we're having to take care of those. But the other part of it, because of the economic situation that we're in right now, the numbers of children who qualify for free and reduced lunch have risen. Our numbers are over 46% of the students that we educate in the Clark County School District qualify for free and reduced lunch. And so if we don't have accurate census data to do that, more and more of those children are coming up and we're not being funded for them.
You know, there are two factors that affect how we get that education funding over 10 years. On the one hand, because the count is only done every 10 years, it multiplies the impact of an undercount over those 10 years. I've got an 8-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter in the Clark County School District right now. They will both be graduated from high school, and we will still be using data from the 2010 census. So that shows you, I mean, you know, the extent of this. No pressure, but you know, any mistakes that we make over the next couple of months, we're going to be feeling the effect of that for the next 10 years.
And I would disagree. I think we need to put the pressure. We do
okay.
need to feel that pressure.
When you look at this segment of Hispanics that configure the larger aggregate group, you realize that a lot of those are Hispanic kids, immigrant kids that are benefiting from these federal programs that are so direly needed, Title I, free and reduced lunches, and Head Start as well.
Explain a little bit about Title I, because people hear that term, but this helps schools in at-risk neighborhoods, and they're particularly vulnerable to an undercount.
Yes, I didn't know if you were asking the educator,
That's
but
okay.
well, Title I programs, are, of course, come in through federal funds and are targeting those communities that are low socioeconomic, that have that need, I should say, an extra hand in getting ready for school, and provide programs that get kids familiar with reading before they even get started. So in terms of Head Start, now Title I are programs that actually are providing kids inside the schools programs that they need to get them up to speed, and especially when it comes to ESL, language proficiency, that sort of thing.
And two things along that line is that the Title I schools are identified by the numbers of children who qualify for free and reduced lunch. So that's what hits the trigger. So the numbers of children on that campus is what qualifies you as a Title I school. The other very, very unfortunate situation right now is that for this next budget in the federal administration, the Title I funds for the Clark County School District are being cut $6.9 million.
Wow.
You know, we're actually really proud of the partnership we've had with the Clark County School District now for going on 2 years. We've been working with the school district to figure out ways to get the word out to the community. We actually have a program called Census in the Schools. It was developed by Scholastic in partnership with the Census Bureau, and we are working with the school district right now to implement lesson plans, maps, you know, role-playing skits, you know, different ways of imparting information about the census to kids. Because honestly, Mitch, sometimes those kids are the best ambassador back to the home. In many cases, they may be the only person in the home who speaks English well. And so we want to make sure that we engage on all cylinders here and to communicate the importance of the census through those schools.
And Aldo, I wanted to ask you this because we have brought this up before, but people need to realize, particularly in Latino and Hispanic communities, confidentiality. This information is not going anywhere.
Well, that's very true, and there is a distrust inborn from immigrant communities that come from other countries where the relationship is between government and citizen is not as transparent and as democratic as we know of here in the United States. One of the things that MALDIF has done is to come up with this palm card, we call it. It's very clear, succinct, and it provides information on the confidentiality of the census. We know that by law, information, the answers that are gathered can't be shared with federal, state, or local agencies, including ICE. And so I think one of the main points that you make is that Hispanics need to be assured that their information is going to be confidential. And I believe, David, you'll correct me, but I think it's 75 years before any of that information can be released. And
72.
72.
Yeah,
so
and strictly enforced, you know, by fine and by jail term. You know, we definitely take that very, very seriously.
One last question, and that is, as I go over this, the summer youth programs, literacy training, after-school programs, early childhood education, there's so much dependent on this.
Those are the programs that we receive the federal grants for to ensure that our children have those opportunities. And if you look at specifically the after-school programs, the high school readiness and the college preparedness for those children who we want to make sure do go to college, but also the early childhood education, there is an economic impact for our community as a whole. If we can fund and continue to have those positive programs on an early childhood education, it has been proven that it shows an economic impact for the community that we live in.
Thank you very, very much, David. Some closing comments. I think maybe only one thing we haven't touched upon is that it doesn't take very long. It used to have this long form, and, and now it's been abbreviated. Explain that.
There's a lot of misinformation about what the census entails, and the fact is this is one of the shortest censuses in the modern history of the census. It is 10 questions. It takes 10 minutes. And we believe it's a very simple thing to do that will directly impact on your community and their quality of life for the next 10 years to come. You know, oftentimes we hear the census referred to elsewhere as a civic duty, as an obligation. Unfortunately, you know, the envelope says your response is required by law. Here in Nevada, our response is required by our self-interest. There is probably no state that has more to gain from this than we do here. So that makes my job kind of easy, to go out there and to make the case for this. But it's the work of all of the partners, all of the people you've seen over the last hour, just the chorus of voices that are all, you know, banding together to talk about the importance of this for the community. We are very confident that we are firing on all cylinders, communicating this message well, and really expressing to the community here in Las Vegas Valley that this is something that is very simple but very important for all of us here as residents.
Well, thank you very much. This has been an informative 60 minutes. I'd like to thank our guests for being on the program and to remind you that you can obtain more information on the Nevada Census at our website at vegaspbs.org. Just click on Make It Count. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.